In this sum, it is given that the roots of alpha and beta of the equation 3x square plus lambda x minus 1 equals to 0. 1 by alpha square plus 1 upon beta square is equals to a 15, and the task is to find out the value of alpha cube plus beta cube whole square. Now understand first of all, the given thing to us is alpha beta being the root of the equation 3x square plus lambda x minus 1. So we can find out the sum of the roots, so alpha plus beta, which will be equals to a minus of b by a, where b is the coefficient of x, a is the coefficient of x square, and that basically would be equals to a minus of lambda by 3. At the same time, if I look at the value of the product of the roots, which is alpha into beta, that is going to be equals to a c by a, where c is the constant term and a, as we know, is your coefficient of x square, will be equals to a minus of 1 by 3. If you look at, we know the absolute value of alpha into beta, but we don't know the absolute value of, one can say, alpha plus beta over here. Now let's look at one more thing, which is 1 by alpha square plus 1 upon beta square equals to a 15. Before we go into that equation, kindly let's focus also on the thing which has been asked, which is alpha cube plus beta cube whole square. So if I know the value of alpha cube plus beta cube, we basically can easily find our answer. Now over here we need to know the algebraic formula, like a cube plus b cube is equals to a plus b whole cube minus 3 times of ab into a plus b. So alpha cube plus beta cube will be equals to, one can say, alpha plus beta whole cube minus 3 times of alpha beta into alpha plus beta. In other words, if I know the value of alpha plus beta, basically I am sorted. So let's try to use this extra information and see whether we can find out the value of alpha plus beta or something on the same lines. So over here, if I suppose take the LCM from this part, one basically will get alpha square plus a beta square divide by alpha square beta square, and this thing is equals to a 15. Let's now cross multiply. So one can possibly say alpha square plus beta square is equals to 15 times alpha square beta square. Now understand one thing, in this particular case, what we can possibly do is, we know the value of, let's say, this particular term. Alpha into beta is known to me as the number minus of 1 by 3. So what I can do in this particular case is, suppose if I try to add, let's say, 2 alpha beta on both sides, and the reason is alpha plus beta whole square, which I am interested in, is going to be equals to alpha square plus beta square plus 2 times of alpha beta, and we know the value of alpha into beta. This part is going to be used throughout. So many of us at this particular point of time may be looking for finding out the value of lambda, but for me lambda is not important. Important is the value of alpha plus beta. So if I suppose add alpha square plus beta square, let's add 2 alpha beta on both sides. So 15 times alpha square beta square plus a 2 alpha beta. And now if you look at the left hand side, entirely become equals to alpha plus beta whole square, which should be equals to 15 times of the value of alpha into beta is known to me as minus of 1/3. So the square of this number basically would be equals to a 1 by 9 plus 2 times. Again, the value of alpha into beta is known to me as minus 1/3. So something like this. This part becomes 5 by 3 minus a 2 by 3, and this thing will become equals to a 3 by 3 or simply equals to a 1. Now understand, alpha plus beta whole square is equals to 1. So alpha plus beta would be equals to either a plus 1 or a minus 1. Both the values are acceptable. But let's try to find out the value of alpha cube plus beta cube. Now please note that since we have two values of alpha plus beta, we are going to find out two different values. Luckily, there's no option like CBD where there could be two different results. So there could be a possibility of the square term of alpha cube plus beta cube ultimately comes out to be the same answer. So one can say in this particular case that this term alpha cube plus a beta cube, which this formula is going to be applicable. Let's put alpha plus beta as 1 for the first question. So 1 cube minus 3 times of the value of alpha into beta is negative 1/3 times of 1, and this thing if you look at comes out to be equals to a 1 plus 1 coming out to be equals to a 2. Then what about if I take the value of, one can say, minus 1, so minus 1 whole cube minus 3 times of minus 1/3, again a minus 1. So minus 1, and this time we get a negative 1. So result basically become equals to a minus 2. So understand the term alpha cube plus beta cube is coming out to be a 2 or a minus 2 depending on the value of alpha plus beta being taken as a 1 or a minus 1. But my square term, so ultimately my focus has to be on alpha cube plus beta cube whole square. That is what they have asked. And this will be equals to either a 2 square or a minus 2 square. In both the case, the outcome basically comes out to be same, which happens to be equals to, one can say, a 4. Hence option number 2 is the required answer for this particular question. The next sum is very interesting, which goes like this. A function f maps the set of natural numbers to whole numbers such that f of x into y is equals to f of x into f of y plus f of x plus f of y for all x and y. And they also told you one very important thing, that f of p is equals to 1 for every prime number, where p can be equals to possibly a 2, 3, 5, 7 and so on. And the task is to find out the value of, one can say, f of 1,60,000. Now in this particular type of question, which is not so straightforward, according to me, one can possibly call it to be a C kind or a B kind. B for the people, let's say, who are able to spot the pattern over here. So in this particular context, what we can do is we can look at what are the possible values of, let's say, f2, then possibly f2 square, because ultimately if I look at this number 1, 6, 4, then 4 zeros is nothing but 2 power 4 into a 10 power 4, and this 10 power 4 I can write as 2 power 4 into 5 power 4. This number is 2 raised to 8 into a 5 raised to 4. So we are able to write down this number in the form of 2 power 8 into 5 power 4 over here. So let's see some of the pattern over here. Now from this part, f of p is equals to 1 for every prime number. So they are saying that if I put p is equals to 2, f of 2 is also going to be equals to a 1 over here. Let us now try to find out the value of f of 4, because f of 4 happens to be a 2 square. So I will see some sort of pattern. So f of 4 will be equals to f of 2 into 2. And now we can take the help of this representation, that f of x into y is equals to f of x into f of y plus f of x plus f of y. This will be equals to f of 2 into f of 2 plus f of 2 plus a f of 2. And this thing, if I put the value of f of 2 as 1, 1 will get 1 into 1 plus 1 plus 1, and this thing become equals to a 3. So we are able to find out the value of, let's say, f of 4 to be equals to a 3. The next thing will be, let's find out the value of f of 8, f of 4 into 2, again with the same known function given to us, f of 4 into f of 2 plus f of 4 plus a f of 2. And this thing again, if I simplify, 3 into 1 plus 3 plus 1, and this outcome basically comes out to be equals to a 7. So most likely the value of f of 2 was 1, f of 4 was 3, f of 8 was 7. So the value of f of 16, if you look at, should be equals to a 15 over here. So at this particular point of time, one can see a very clear pattern that this numbers 2, 4, 8, 16 nothing but some powers of 2. Like if I talk about the number f of, let's say, 16, which happens to be nothing but 16 is 2 power 4, the outcome is 2 power n minus 1. So one can say here f of 2 raised to n is equals to a 2 raised to n minus 1. And I was also able to find out this kind of pattern over here. And one can say the outcome of, let's say, f of 32 would be nothing but 1 less than that particular number, which is f of, one can say, 31 over here. Now what is going to happen in case I find out the value f of 5, f of 5 square and so on? That is going to be very crucial. So understand f of 5, since 5 is a prime number, should be equals to 1. Now what about f of 25, which one can say is f of 5 into 5, is going to be equals to f of 5 into f of 5 plus f of 5 plus f of 5, and this thing 1 into 1 plus 1 again become equals to a 3. So understand the value of f of 25 also happens to be 3. So if someone asks you what do you think is f of 125, it is going to be f of 5 cube, and that will come out to be equals to a 7. Now, one question in this particular case could be that one can say if I have f of any prime number, let's say raised to n, this thing will be equals to a simply 2 raised to n minus 1. And one can also verify the answer. In this particular case, someone asks you find the value of f of 10, which I can say would be f of 2 into f of 5, f of 2 into f of 5 plus f of 2 plus f of 5, this outcome also comes out to be equals to a 3. So ultimately in this particular case, if you look at the number f of 10 and if I look at the sum of the powers of the prime number, which happens to be equals to a 2 in this particular case, that is why the required answer in this particular case becomes nothing but 2 square minus 1 over here. So once you find out this kind of pattern, so once we know this f of p power n is equals to 2 power n minus 1, we can look for our answer. So this number, once we got this part as a pattern which we have generated, and the task was supposed to find out the number f of 1,60,000. This number is f of, as we have seen, 2 power 8 into a 5 power 4. And this, if I use the function that f of x into f of y plus f of x plus f of y, f of 2 power 8 into f of 5 power 4 plus f of 2 power 8 plus f of 5 power 4, and then we can look for the value. Understand, we know this part f of p power n is equals to 2 power n minus 1. This will be equals to a 2 raised to 8 minus 1 times f of 5 power 4 will be equals to a 2 raised to 4 minus 1 plus one can say f of 2 raised to, not f, this is 2 raised to 8 minus 1 plus a 2 raised to 4 minus 1. And this thing, if I simplify over here, you will see the required outcome. This is 255 into 15 plus 255 plus a 15, and this result basically will come out to be equals to a 4095. Hence option number 3 is the required answer for this particular question. The shortcut in this particular case, once you do solve this particular pattern, was that this number is f of 2 raised to 8 into 5 power 4. So ultimately, if you look at over here, that how many, this is a prime number, this is like p power 8 into p power 4. This is f of p power 12, and we have got this particular pattern that f of p power n is equals to 2 power n minus 1. So the term f of p power 12 should be equals to 2 raised to 12 minus 1. And how much is 2 power 12? 2 power 10 happens to be a 1024. The term 2 power 12 happens to be equals to a 4096. So 4096 minus 1 will give you a 4095. And hence option number 3 is the answer for this particular question. If I look at one more perspective over here, the conventional way to solve this particular question, then the thing is, moment suppose a cat aspirant sees something like, let's say, A plus B plus AB, then one should know that we can think of factorizing something. If I possibly have another plus 1 over here, then this is going to be equals to a plus 1 into a B plus 1. So something similar strike to me also in the exam condition, that f of x into y, which is equals to f of x into f of y plus f of y plus f of x. So suppose if I add a 1 on both sides, then my entire RHS side can be factorized, one can say, as f of x plus 1 in one bracket times f of y plus 1 in the other bracket. So f of x into y plus 1 is equals to f of x plus 1 times f of y plus 1. Now why this is useful? Because moment suppose if I talk about the prime number, right now we know f of p is equals to a 1. If someone asks you, if I put both x and y basically as equals to a p, then you will get f of p square plus 1 to be equals to f of p plus 1 times f of p plus 1. And this thing one can say is clearly going to be equals to, because f of p is equals to 1, and that is true for every prime number. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 1 is 2, and that is why we get 2 into 2 as nothing but a 2 square term. So f of p square plus 1 is equals to a 2 square. Now, same way, if I wanted suppose f of p cube plus 1, because I can first of all write down the term f of p cube as p square into 1. So this is going to be written as f of p square plus 1 times f of p plus 1. And we know that this f of p square plus 1 term happens to be nothing but f of p plus 1 times f of p plus 1. So this becomes basically f of p plus 1, f of p plus 1, f of p plus 1. And again, since the value of f of p is known to us as the number, one can say a 1, each of this bracketed term becomes 2 into 2 into 2 becomes a 2 cube. And that is why one can say f of p cube is equals to a 2 cube minus 1, or simply a 7 over here. So please note, f of p square is, one can say 2 square minus 1, 3. F of p cube is equals to, one can say nothing but 2 cube minus 1, which is 7. If I have, let's say, f of 2 p power 10, it will be equals to a 2 power 10 minus 1, which is 1023. So in this particular context, the number was f of 2 raised to 8 into a 5 raised to 4. The number 2 and 5, both of them are prime numbers, so we have something like a p power 8 into p power 4. This is f of p power 12, and that is why the value of f of p raised to 12 will be equals to a 2 raised to 12 minus 1. 2 power 12 corresponds to a 4096 minus 1, giving you a 4095. Hence option number 3 is the answer for this particular question. In the next sum, it is given that if a, b, c are the positive real numbers such that a is more than 10, b and c are, let's say, less than equals to 10, and this a, b, c are positive real number, and then we have given some log term over here, and the objective is to find out the greatest possible integer value of a. Again, a theta question, and not a very straightforward sum, because people can end up making mistake if they don't read the sum very carefully, the mistake which I also did in the exam over here. So what do we have? If I focus on the log term over here, then this is log of a plus b, base is 8. So I will write this number. Let's say if I have log a to the base b, which is equals to log a divided by log b, the term I will write as log of a plus b divided by log of 8. Then we have this log c base 2, which is log c divided by log 2, plus likewise the term log of a minus b base 27, I will write as log of a minus b divided by log of 27 divide by log of c to the base 3. So log of c to the base 3, I will write as log of c divided by log of 3. And this sum must be equals to a 2 by 3. Now understand, the number 8 and 27 sound familiar. 8 happens to be a 2 cube, 27 happens to be a 3 cube. So I will write the number first of all 8 as 2 cube and 27 basically as 3 cube. And we know the basic property, log of a raised to n is equals to n times of log a. That powers are going to come in the front. The term log of 8, which become log of 2 cube, is eventually equals to a 3 log 2. And likewise the term log 27, which happens to be a log of 3 cube, is equals to a 3 times of log 3. So now if I look at this particular result, I can simply cancel this term on both sides, and we can say, what do we have? We have a simplified form, log of a plus b divided by log of c, I can think of as log of a plus b base c. We have a 1/3 here, plus again we have a 1/3, and likewise log of a minus b divided by log of c is equals to a log of a minus b base c, and this is equals to a 2 by 3. Now if I multiply by 3, this 3 basically can be simply cancelled out. One good thing which happened at this particular point of time is that on the left hand side both the log term have a same common base of c. Now what happens now? Log of m plus log of n is equals to log of m times of n. So one can say log of, this will become a plus b into a minus b base c is equals to 2 now. Then we have log of this term a plus b into a minus b is nothing but a square minus b square base c is equals to 2. And now we know this property from definition of logarithm. If I have log of a to the base b is equals to n, then a is nothing but b power n. So one can say a square minus b square is equals to a c square. So many of us, basically, if I use some basic property of logarithm, will be able to arrive at this particular result. And now understand, task is to find out the max value of a with some given condition. So you have a square to be equals to b square plus c square. So even I made a silly mistake at this particular point of time because I saw a square equals to b square plus c square, and the task is to find out the max possible value of, let's say, a as integer. But please note that nowhere they have mentioned the nature of b and c also as integer. All they have told you is b and c are positive real number such that both b and c are less than equals to a 10. So if I want to maximize the value of a over here, what I should have done is that I should have put the highest possible value of both b and c. If I do that, one can say the largest possible value of a square will be equals to nothing but a 10 square plus 10 square, which is going to make it 200. So the largest possible value of a square is equals to a 200. So now if someone asks you, can you give me a largest perfect square which is less than 200, and the answer basically happens to be, one can say nothing but the number 14, which is 196. 14 square happens to be 196. So if I look at a square being less than, so one can say here a square basically is going to be less than equals to a 2000. So the value of a is going to be less than equals to square root of 200, not 2000. So a would be less than equals to 14 point something. So definitely if you look at over here, the largest integer value of a happens to be equals to a 14, hence 14 is the answer. So please note, if you don't read the sum very carefully, in that case there is a chance that we can make mistake like this, and people will think on the lines of 6, 8 and 10 forms a triplet, and possibly we can mark the value of a basically as equals to 10, even though I should not, because they have told a being more than 10 over here. But theta question, and if you don't read the sum very carefully about the conditions on different variables and the parameters, we can end up making some silly mistakes. So again, overall, not a very straightforward question. One can possibly say it's a B type of problem. In the next sum, it is given that if x and y are real numbers such that 4x square plus 4y square minus 4xy minus 6y plus 3 equals to 0, task is to find out the value of 4x plus 5y over here. Now understand one thing, again, not a very standard kind of problem, but people who have done enough practice over here will be able to see the proper approach. And the main kind of approach in this particular case is going to be that somewhere we can make some sort of factors, or maybe we can think of writing something in the form of sum of two perfect square. Then only we can find out the value of, let's say, x and y, let's say, in a single equation. So here, if I look at, do we have any term involving x? And the answer is only two term involving, let's say, x. And basically we have three term involving y, 4y square minus 4xy minus 6y. In this kind of problem, balancing is very important. Let's write down the term involving x on first. 4x square minus 4xy plus a 4y square minus 6y plus 3 equals to a 0. And now think about the term 4x square, I can rewrite as 2x whole square. So maybe at this particular point of time, I will think on the lines of a plus b whole square or a minus b whole square, which happens to be a square plus b square plus 2ab or minus 2ab, depending on whether I'm thinking of a plus b whole square or a minus b whole square. So now minus 2 into 2x. Right now I got the term 4x. What will you multiply in 4x to reach the number 4xy? And the answer is a y here. So we have got 2x whole square minus 2 into 2x into y. That means to make this part a perfect square, we need to add a y square on both sides. So suppose let's say I put a y square over here. We do have a 4y square term. That means to balance it out, what I will do is I need extra 3y square. So 3y square minus 6y plus 3 equals to a 0. And now one can clearly see the term on the left hand side, the first three term I can rewrite as 2x minus y whole square plus. Now something you can see on the next three term on the left hand side, I can potentially take something common, which is 3. If I take 3 common, we are left with y square minus 2y plus 1. And again this term y square minus 2y plus 1 should also sound very familiar, that this I can also write in a very standard format, which is 3 times of y minus 1 whole square equals to 0. Now since x and y are real numbers and what we are getting now is some perfect square plus 3 times some perfect square equals to 0, this equation can only hold good provided each of the perfect square quantity are equals to 0, which means the term y minus 1 whole square will be equals to 0, and that can happen if y is equals to a 1 and the other perfect square is going to be equals to 0. So for 2x minus y whole square equals to 0, the term 2x need to be equals to a y. So understand the value of y is equals to 1. 2x equals to y mean the value of x has to be equals to half. If 2x is y, then the term 4x will be equals to 2y plus 5y and this thing will become equals to 7y. The expression 4x plus 5y will be equals to 7y, and since the value of y is equals to 1, this term 4x plus 5y will be equals to 7, and 7 is the answer for this particular question. In the next sum, it clearly says 3 circles of equal radii touch but not cross each other externally, something of this kind. 2 other circle x and y are drawn such that both touch but not cross each of the 3 previous circles. If the radius of x is more than that of y, then the ratio of the radii of x and y over here. Now first thing understand, in this particular case one can say the circle, one can say x in this particular case has to surround the 3 big circle, somewhat like this, and the circle y, since it is touching let's say all the 3 earlier circle, it is going to be in the center, somewhat like this. And the task is to find out the radius of the circle x and circle y in this particular case. One thing, if you observe, they have not given any kind of value. So possibly in the 3 circle of equal radius, we can take whatever value we are comfortable with. And we have seen multiple times. For example, suppose if I take the centers of these 3 circles over here, and if I join the centers like this, they are definitely going to form, one can say, equilateral triangle. And if I look at this particular center of this small one, in that particular case, this particular point has to be, one can say, a centroid. So understand one thing in this particular case, that this point, if I call it to be, let's say, a G, the circle of the center of the circle y in this particular case is the centroid of this equilateral triangle. So I can possibly take the value of, let's say, the side of the equilateral triangle to be equals to a 12 or possibly a 6 as well. So let's take this number potentially as, one can say, a 3. The radius of this 3 circles to be equals to a 3, and that means the equilateral triangle, suppose if I call it to be a ABC, is nothing but, one can say, equilateral triangle of dimension 6 over here. Now suppose, as I told you, if I take this center to be equals to a G, in that particular case, as I told you, this G is the centroid, so this AG, one can say, is nothing but 2/3 of the height of the equilateral triangle. I hope people know the property centroid divides the median in the ratio of 2:1. In case of equilateral triangle, the median, perpendicular, perpendicular bisector, everything basically is the same line. So in this particular context, the length of AG, one can say, would be equals to 2/3 of the height of this triangle. And what is the formula for the height of equilateral triangle? So one can say root 3 by 2 times of side, root 3 by 2 times of side, and the side become equals to a 6. So I hope people now got the logic of why I assume, let's say, the radius to be equals to 3, such that the equilateral triangle becomes of side 6, and this part will be equals to a 2 root 3. So AG is equals to a 2 root 3. Do we have any other means to write down the number? Let's say AG, and the answer would be yes. So understand AG, which is equals to a 2 root 3, you can also see is nothing but the radius of this circle plus this one, if I call it to be a y. So I can say 3 plus y. Understand the small y in this particular case happens to be the radius of this small circle. So we now have the value of y to be equals to a 2 root 3 minus 3. So we have got one of them. And now we can find out the other one as well. Now what need to be done, let's say, for the other one? In that particular case, one can say that this, so the bigger one, which I can say is the radius x, I can say would be equals to AG plus 3. The bigger circle x radius is going to be nothing but, one can say, AG plus 3. So this x, one can say AG, one can say is equals to a 2 root 3 plus 3. So we found out the radius of the bigger circle as 2 root 3 plus 3, and the radius of the smaller circle as 2 root 3 minus 3, and now we can easily find out the required ratio of the radius. So the required has to be nothing but x by y. So 2 root 3 plus 3 divide by 2 root 3 minus 3. Now we can rationalize to make it simple. So 2 root 3 plus 3 divide by 2 root 3 minus 3. The term 2 root 3 plus 3 whole square will be nothing but 2 root 3 square plus a 3 square plus 2 into 2 root 3 into 3 divide by 2 root 3 square minus a 3 square. And if I simplify this particular result, this is going to be nothing but equals to 2 root 3 square become nothing but 4 into 3, 12 plus 3 square is 9. This particular term will become equals to, one can say, a 12 root 3 divide by, this part will become 12 minus 9. So what do we have? 12 plus 9 is 21. This part will become a 21 plus 12 root 3 divide by, this term is 3. And if I simplify this number, 3 times 7, 3 times 4, we get 7 plus 4 root 3. The required ratio becomes 7 plus 4 root 3. That means 7 plus 4 root 3 is to 1. So one can safely choose to mark option number 4 as the answer for this particular question. But if you look at overall, again this sum doesn't fall into the category A. It's again a potentially B for many of the students. The next sum was interesting and I was able to solve this in a quick time. The main thing is again to spot the pattern. So many of the people, let's say, have solved this sum with the help of approximation, but it's a very straightforward sum on, one can say, infinite GP sequence. So what do we have? If you look at over here, we have a sequence given to us, and suppose I say if I try to open the bracket. So first term, suppose if I multiply, will look like this: 1 by 5 square minus 1 by 5 into a 1 by 7. That's my first bracketed term. If I suppose open the second bracket, in that case you will get 1 by 5 square into 1 by 5 square, giving you a 1 by 5 raised to 4. And you also have, one can say, 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 whole square. That's my second term. The next sum, if I look at 1 by 5 cube into 1 by 5 cube, I can say 1 by 5 whole raised to 6 minus 1 by 5 cube into 1 by 7 cube is nothing but, one can say, 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 whole cube. And this thing will continue up to infinity. So no, let's say, doubt in saying the fourth term must be equals to 1 by 5 raised to 8. minus 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 whole raised to 4 over here. And now at this particular point of time, I can see two different kind of GPs. So suppose if I combine the positive term, like let's say 1 by 5 square, then 1 by 5 raised to 4, 1 by 5 raised to 6, and so on up to infinity in one bracket. And if I combine the negative term together, so minus 1 by 5 into 1 by 7, then 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 square, then 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 whole cube, and this thing also basically goes to infinity. So now I can clearly see two infinite GP sequence. If I focus on the first sequence, then one can see the first term happens to be a 1 by 5 square, and the common ratio also happens to be a 1 by 5 square. And we know the formula, sum of an infinite GP sequence happens to be equals to a divided by 1 minus r. So the first term is this 1 by 5 square divide by 1 minus r, and r also happens to be 1 by 5 square. Then if I look at this particular term, the second GP sequence, in this particular case, the first term happens to be a 1 by 5 into 1 by 7, or one can say 1 over 35, and the common ratio happens to be also, one can say nothing but 1 by 5 into 1 by 7 or 1 by 35. So 1 by 35 is the first term, and the common ratio is also 1 by 35. So again we use the result a over 1 minus r over here. So this thing is 1 by 25 divided by 1 minus 1 by 25 is going to give you a 24 over 25. This is 1 by 35 divided by 1 minus 1 over 35 is 34 by 35. And clearly this is going to be becoming a 1 by 24 minus a 1 by 34. Now if someone take the LCM over here, so one can say LCM will be 34 times of 12 giving you 408, and this will be 24 into 17 is 408, 34 into 12 is 108, so I get a 17 minus 12, and this will give you 5 over 408, which means the required answer is option number 1 over here. In the next sum, it is given that a vessel contained a certain amount of solution of acid and water. So we don't know right now how much acid, how much water, but it's a mixture of acid and water. When 2 liters of water was added to it, the solution had 50% acid concentration. When 15 liters of acid was further added to it, the new solution, the final solution now become 80% acid concentration. The ratio of the water and acid in the original solution was how much? So in this particular case, again we can think of taking a slightly longer route as well. So what I can do is, suppose if I take the original solution, and suppose if I take acid was X and let's say water was Y, it's a slightly longer method, possibly with the help of, one can say, variable X and Y over here. This is what we have. So what has been happened in this particular case, you have tried to add some 2 liters of water, and because of this, one can say the acid quantity will remain same. Suppose if I say X is the acid, then water will now going to be equals to a Y plus 2. At this particular point of time, the acid concentration happens to be a 50%. So we have a 50% acid concentration. And what does that mean? That simply means acid and water must be equal in quantity. So one can say X is going to be equals to a Y plus 2 is one of my equation from the first part. Now what has happened after that? Then you are adding 15 liters of acid. So 15 liters of acid. And this basically will change the acid quantity and not the water quantity. So one can say potentially a X plus 15 here. And this part will remain, one can say, a Y plus 2 as it is. So in this particular context, one can say that if this acid concentration is 80%, then water basically has to be at 20%. So what you can do is you can use multiple methods. So one can say the ratio of the acid and let's say water. So we have a 80% acid concentration. If acid is 80%, then water has to be at 20%. The required ratio in this particular case has to be, one can say, 4:1. So x plus 15, one can say, must be 4 times of y plus 2. So x would be equals to, one can say, 4y minus 7, because 4y plus 8 minus 15 giving you a 4y minus 7. And since we know x is also equals to a y plus 2, I can easily find out the value. So 3y would be equals to a 9, y become equals to a 3. And if y become equals to 3, x become equals to a 5. That means initial quantity of acid is 5, initial quantity of water happens to be a 3. So people will mark 5 is to 3, and believe me, I also made the same mistake. I have not read the last part very carefully. They want the ratio of water and acid. So water is 3, acid is 5. So they want the ratio of water is to acid. So water is to acid is going to be 3 is to 5. So the answer will be option number 4 and not option number 3, as the same mistake I made. I marked option number 2, but the required answer was option number 4. So you are going to curse yourself in case you do all the hard work and end up making a mistake like this, because it was supposed to be a, let's say, plus 3, I got a minus 1, and my marks basically have changed by 4 over here. The raw score has changed by 4. Let's look at one more way using the concept of allegation in this particular case. And what we can do is, let's look at what do we have. We have some original solution. Then we are putting basically some 2 liters of water, and that give you a solution having a 50% acid solution. Now in this 50%, what we are mixing, we are, let's say, mixing some 15 liters of acid, and this result basically give you nothing but, one can say, 80% acid concentration solution. So in a way, I can use the concept of allegation. So understand, this solution has an acid concentration of 50%. This 15 liter of acid, you have entire thing acid, which is 100%, and this two when combined is giving you a 80% acid solution. If I look at the required ratio, this is 80 minus 50 is 30, 100 minus 80 happens to be a 20, and this is nothing but 2 is to 3. That means a 2 liter of this 50% solution should be mixed with a 15 liter of acid. 2 with mixed with 3 liters of the acid. But since they have given a 15 liters over here, if this is 15, then this quantity basically has to be equals to a 10. So this 50% acid solution basically was nothing but 10 liters. Now understand, in this particular case, this 10 basically means your acid and water must be equal 5 and a 5. And to achieve this 5 and a 5, we have added 2 liters of water. That means in the original, water must be 2 less. We are going from here to here now. So 3 water and 5 will be nothing but acid. Again, please be very careful. Since they ask you for water is to acid, it has to be 3 is to 5. And hence one can say that option number 4 is the required answer for this particular sum. In the next sum, it is given that if m and n are natural numbers such that n is more than 1 and m power n is equals to 2 power 25 into a 3 power 40, then find the value of m minus n. Again, a very nice problem, and again you need to think properly in this particular case. Now, what is the scenario? Since the power n in this particular case has to be something more than 1, and the nature of m and n are both natural numbers, so it has to be a positive integer more than 1 over here. So now, suppose if you have something like this, maybe if I talk about a and b are prime numbers, and if I have a square into b cube, can I combine both of them? And the simple answer is definitely going to be a no in this particular case. But I hope people are aware about this kind of property, that if I have suppose a square into b square, can that I write as a into b whole square? Even if I have suppose a cube into b cube into c cube, this I can also write as, let's say, a into b into c whole cube. So for that to happen, basically what I want is, I want the same power. And if I focus on the powers as 25 and let's say 40 over here, what do you think is the only common thing in the number 25 and 40? and the simple answer in this particular case happens to be a 5. So my HCF of the number 25 and 40 happens to be equals to 5. What does that mean? For example, if I say, if I have a number like suppose a power 12, a power 12 I can write in various form, maybe simply a power 6 whole square, because 2 is a factor of that number, a power 4 whole raised to 3, a cube whole raised to 4, a square whole power 6. So in this particular context, since the power happens to be 25 and let's say 40 for the two different bases, the only common thing in this particular case happens to be a factor common to both 25 and 40 happens to be 5 in this case. So what I can do is the number m power n. So this number 2 power 25 I will write as something raised to 5. So 2 raised to 5 into 5 first of all. 3 raised to. Again, the number 40 I will split basically as 8 into 5. And now understand the basic law of indices. A raised to m whole raised to n is equals to a raised to m times of n. So now I can clearly see that this number 2 power 25 I can rewrite as 2 raised to 5 raised to 5. And the number 3 power 40 I will write as 3 power 8 whole raised to 5. Now, what about the number 2 power 5 equivalent to nothing but 32? So, 32 raised to 5 into 3 power 8. So, 3 power 8, 3 power 4 is 81. So, 3 power 8 one can say nothing but 3 power 4 whole square, or one can say 81 square, which happens to be a 6561. And now at this particular point of time, a power n into b power n I can write as a into b whole raised to n. So this thing I can write m power n to be equals to 32 into 6561 raised to a 5 over here. So now we can multiply and we can take the help of, one can say, calci also at this particular point of time. Those who are not comfortable of multiplication, let's do this over here. 32 into 1 is 32, so 2 carry 3. 32 6 is 192, 192 plus 3 is 195, so 5 carry 19. 32 5s are, one can say, is 160, 160 plus 19 becomes a 179, so 9 carry is 17. 32 6 is 192, 192 plus 17 becomes a 209. So 209952 raised to 5. And since we know m is a positive integer which is more than 1, so here one can say m must be equals to 209952, n must be equals to a 5, and the term m minus n, so if I subtract I get m minus n to be equals to 209947. Hence, option number 2 is the required answer for this particular question. If you look at one smart thing which you can do in this particular case, so if I look at the option, let's say last two 42, 47, 32, and let's say 37. Once I got the last two, which is 52, so one can say m is going to end with the number 52, and the value of n is 5. So 52 minus 5 become 47. I would have marked option number 2 as the answer over here. In the next sum, it is given that ABCD is a trapezium in which AB is parallel to CD, so somewhat like this. The side AD and BC, when extended, intersect at the point E. So when extended, AD and BC meet at the point E. The given thing is AB is equals to a 2, DC is equals to a 1, and since ABCD was a trapezium, your DC and AB must be parallel. They have also given the perimeter of the trapezium ABCD to be equal to a 6 centimeter. Then the perimeter of the triangle AEB will be how much over here? Now what we can do in this particular case, understand, if I look at the trapezium ABCD and nothing was given about the type of the trapezium, one possible safe thing to assume was to assume this trapezium to be an isosceles trapezium. So I could have taken, let's say, both of them to be equals to a and a over here. In that particular case, the perimeter, which is equals to a 6 centimeter, must be equals to a plus 1 plus a plus 2, giving you a 2a plus 3 as 6. So one can say 2a equals to 3 or a equals to 1.5. So I can take this as 1.5, this also as a 1.5. The next thing which is important here is to find out the length of D and EC So one can possibly think about some known theorem, the well-known theorem. If I look at suppose something on DC and AB, so DC is parallel to AB since it was a trapezium. And one thing, if you also observe, DC is equals to half of AB, which means at this particular point we can think about, one can say, midpoint theorem, or one can say converse of midpoint theorem. So since DC is parallel to AB and half of AB, one can say D and C are the midpoint. So one can conclude D and C are midpoint of, one can say, AE and BE respectively. If that is the case, I can take the length of DE as 1.5 and CE also as a 1.5. So the length of, let's say, AE now becomes 3. The length of, let's say, BE also becomes 3. And the length of AB is given to us as a 2. And the task was to find out the perimeter of the triangle AEB. So 3 plus 3 plus 2 giving you a 8. So one should mark option number 1 as the answer for this particular question. Now, those of you will ask that why I have assumed it to be a and a equal. It doesn't matter even if I have taken, suppose this as a and a B, and I, let's say, have used the property of the perimeter of the trapezium equals to a 6, I will find out A plus B equals to a 3. But this portion, that DC parallel to AB and DC is equals to half of AB, will still be true, will make the point D and C to be the midpoint. So these two are going to be equal. This are going to be equal. So one can say this length DE will also be equals to a. The length of CE is also going to be equals to a B. So now if I look at the perimeter of the triangle AEB, which is going to be equals to, the length of AE is equals to a 2A, the length of BE is equals to a 2B, the length of AB is equals to a 3, and understand in this particular, sorry, the length of AB is equals to a 2. So the term A plus B was 3, so 2A plus 2B will become equals to a 6. 6 plus 2 will become equals to 8, and hence option number 1 is the answer over here. In the next sum, it is given that the coordinate of the three vertices of a triangle are 1, 2, 7, 2, and 1, 10. Then the radius of the inner circle of the triangle is how much? A very straightforward question. So suppose if I look at 1, 2, so 1, 2 is going to be somewhere over here. Then 7, 2 would be somewhere over here. So it's very clear that if I join this two line, in that particular case, this is going to have the same y coordinate. So it's a y equals to 2 over here. And this line basically one can say is parallel to the x-axis. Then we have third point, which is 1, 10, and 1, 2 and 1, 10 have the same x coordinate. So maybe if I say it's 1, 10 over here, and this, since it has the same, one can say, x coordinate, this is going to be equals to x equals to 1, one line one can say which is going to be the parallel to the y-axis or perpendicular to the x-axis. So we have something like this, which clearly means that this two line segment are going to be nothing but perpendicular to each other, as one of them is y equals to 2, other is basically x equals to 1, one parallel to x, other parallel to y-axis. So in simple word, this basically is nothing but a right angle triangle. And we have a simple property regarding finding out the circumradius or in radius of a right angle triangle. So this distance, suppose if I call the triangles to be a, B and a C, in that case the length of BC is nothing but difference in the x coordinate, 7 minus 1 giving you a 6. Now what about the length of AB? So if I look at AB, nothing but length of AB happens to be nothing but difference in the y coordinate, 10 minus 2 will give you a 8. So 6, 8, which means clearly the hypotenuse is going to be nothing but equals to a 10. We can also find out the distance formula to find out the length of AC, AB and BC, and we can verify with the help of, let's say, BC square plus AB square equals to AC square to prove that this triangle happens to be a right angle triangle. Now, how to find out the in radius for right angle triangle? And the simple answer in this particular case is, if I take this as side A, this let's say as B, and this basically as a C, in that particular case the in radius, the simple result known to us is A plus B minus C divided by 2. And how much is a plus b? So one can say 6 plus 8 minus 10 divided by 2, and that becomes 14 minus 10 happens to be a 4. 4 divided by 2 is equals to a 2. Hence 2 is the answer for this particular question. Again, people who don't know this particular result can also, let's say, use the formula area of a triangle is equals to in radius into semi-perimeter. Now, what is the area for this triangle? So one can say half of 6 into 8. Base is 6, height is 8. In radius is what I'm supposed to calculate. The value of S nothing but semi-perimeter. 6 plus 8 plus 10 become nothing but 24 is the perimeter. Divide by 2 will give me a 12. And now if I solve for this, this is going to be a 4, this is 3, this is 2. So small r become equals to a 2. So whether people use a plus b minus c whole divide by 2 or area is equals to r into s, you can use something else as well. You can use this formula also. In radius is equals to s minus c. S happens to be a 12, c happens to be a 2. This also will give you a 2 over here. So a very straightforward question, and people who have done the basics in geometry should be able to crack this particular question. Definitely a type A according to me. In the next sum, they are saying that when Rajesh's age was same as the present age of Garima. So understand, in this particular sentence, they are comparing the Rajesh's past age with the present age of Garima. The ratio of their age was 3:2. So at that point of time, the ratio of the age of Rajesh and Garima was 3:2. When Garima age will become same as the present age of Rajesh, the ratio of the ages of Rajesh and Garima will be how much? So what I will do is I will write it down like Rajesh, Garima. So it's a simple sum, one can say, on the ratios. So current age, the present age, past and future. So first of all, again, when Rajesh's age was same as the present age of Garima, so in the, let's say, somewhere in the past, Rajesh's age was same as Garima. So these two age basically were same. And they are saying in the past, the ratio of the age happens to be nothing but, one can say, 3:2. So I can say in the past, the ratio of Rajesh's age and Garima age I can take very much as 3x and 2x. So in the past, the age of Garima was, let's say, 2x. Now understand one thing, in this particular context, they have told that when Rajesh was as same present age of Garima, so Garima present age also become equals to a 3x. Now understand, if the difference between the current age and the past age of Garima happens to be how much? How much will you add in 2x to reach a 3x? Nothing but a x. Which means the current age of Rajesh, one can say, will become equals to a 4x. Right? This is what we have can say right now. And the question says when Garima age will become same as the present age of Rajesh. So if Rajesh age is 4x, and if I want Garima age to be equals to present age of Rajesh, these two things need to be same. And for that to happen, it's another x years, which means Rajesh's age at that point of time will be equals to a 5x. So please note, there was no need of x also over here. And what they want is at that point of time, what is the ratio of the age of Rajesh and Garima? And that, if you look at, is 5x is to 4x, or simply a 5 is to 4. Hence option number 1 is the answer for this particular question. This sum basically has been straight lifted from the previous year, CAT 23 slot 3. So this question was difficult last year, and people who might not have seen this earlier will again find this sum to be on the challenging side. Definitely a type C according to me if you have not seen previously. Please note, it's an admit over here that I have, let's say, got this question right in the previous year, but I made a mistake in this cycle. So because I didn't, let's say, solve this particular question, I just marked the answer randomly. So a fruit seller has a stock of mango, banana and apple with at least one fruit of each type. Very important, at least one fruit of each type was present, mango, banana and apple. At the beginning of the day, the number of mangoes make up 40% of the stock. 40%. That day he sell half of the mango. That basically would mean nothing, but if I assume it to be 100%, then 40% are mangoes, and out of this 40%, one can say 20% have been sold. 96 banana. and 40% of the apples. At the end of the day, he ends up selling 50% of the fruits, the smallest possible total number of fruit in the stock at the beginning of the day. So in this particular case, what we can do is we have, let's say, three variety. One is mango, banana and apple. And suppose if I assume the number to be 100, it won't be nice, but suppose if I assume the total number of, let's say, fruit present to be equals to 100x. So from this particular sentence, at the beginning of the day, the number of mangoes make up 40% of the stock. 40% of this number correspond to 40x. We don't know anything about the initial amount of banana, and even we don't know what percentage of banana were sold. I only know the absolute number was 96. Now understand one thing, that the number of apples sold happens to be 40%. If I think about the number 40% in terms of fraction, this becomes nothing but 40 over 100, or one can say 2 by 5. So I will take this number potentially as, let's say, 5y over here. So I assume the number of apples initially happen to be equals to a 5y. And what about banana? Understand the total of mango, banana and apple should be equals to 100x. So this quantity one can say should be equals to 60x minus 5y. Now how much are we selling in this particular case? So amount, let's say the number of fruits sold. So mangoes sold basically was 50%. That will give you a 20x. The number of bananas sold, one can say, was 96, given to us absolute number. And how about the apples? So one can say 40% were sold, which basically would be nothing but one can say 2 by 5 of the number 5y, giving you a 2y. And what can one clearly say in this particular case is that total amount of fruit sold, which is 20x plus 96 plus a 2y, this total must be equals to, one can say, 50%. So 50x over here. So from this particular part, we can find out that 30x should be equals to a 96 plus 2y. And please note over here, the task is to find out the smallest possible total number of fruit. Total number of fruit for 100x. So the task is to minimize the value of this particular term, and to minimize this, in a way we have to minimize the value of, one can say, x over here. So what I can say about the number 10x, if I do that, I will divide by 3. So 32 plus 2y by 3. And since my task is to minimize the value of the term 100x, let's multiply by 10 now, and that will give you 100x to be equals to a 320 plus 20y by 3. So you can look at the number, the least value of the fruits has to be equals to 320 plus something. Understand, you can't put the value of y to be 0. Ideally we could have, but that will violate this condition, at least one fruit of each type. We need minimum one apple as well. So in this particular context, if you look at, if you want to minimize the value of 100x, in that case we have to minimize the value of 20y by 3. This also need to be minimum. And this quantity has to be a proper number, because the number of fruit can't be in decimal. So if I focus on the term 20y by 3, this is going to be minimum for y equals to 3. So if y is equals to 3, then this particular term will become nothing but a 320 plus 20, which is 340. Hence 340 is the smallest possible total number of fruit in the stock at the beginning of the day. Hence 340 is the answer for this particular question. It is definitely a type C question, because many of you won't be able to solve it if you are seeing it for the first time. People who have, let's say, solved this question in the previous year paper of CAT 23 slot 3 may find this to be on the easier side, because they will straight away mark the answer as 340. So it's a A or a C. People who have seen it and know the answer, it's a A for them. Otherwise, it's a type C for most of you. The next sum, again a straightforward sum, a sitter, definitely a type A problem. People who have done, let's say, remainders. The question says 3 power 333. If you divide by 11, the remainder is how much? So again, we know the technique in this type of problem. We look for, let's say, what power of 3 will give you remainder of 1 for the first time, and we can see some sort of trend also. So 3 raised to 1 will give you a remainder of 3 if you divide by 11. 3 square happens to be a 9, and that will give you 9 as a remainder. 3 cube happens to be equals to, one can say, a 27, and will give a 5 as a remainder if you divide by 11. Then 3 raised to 4 happens to be, one can say, a 81. When you divide by 11, so 77 is the largest multiple of 11, will give you 4 as a remainder. Then 3 power 5 happens to be a 243. So 3 power 5 is 243, and if you divide the number 243 by the number 11, so 242 happens to be a multiple of the number 11, so will give you a remainder of 1. So once I know 3 power 5 will give me a remainder of 1, number like 3 power 10 is also going to give me a remainder of 1. 3 power 15 when divided by 11 also will give me a remainder of 1. So anything like in the form 3 raised to 5k when divided by 11 will give me a remainder of 1. So if you look at now the number, which is 3 power 333, this I can write as 3 power. I will write this as a power of, let's say, multiple of 5, like this. This number is 3 power 5k into 3 power 3. Now we know that if I divide the number 3 power 5k by 11, the remainder is 1. 3 power 3 when divided by 11 will give you a remainder of 5. And we know the rule over here, we can just multiply my remainder. 1 into 5 happens to be a 5. And that means my required answer for this particular question would be option number 1 over here. Many of us may want to use the Fermat theorem over here. So in this particular context, since my divisor happens to be 11, the theorem says, the Fermat theorem says, a 3 raised to 10 when divided by 11, the corresponding remainder would be equals to a 1. So without looking at the pattern, we can do this. So one can write this particular number as 3 raised to 10 whole raised to 30 into 3 cube when divided by 11. Now 3 power 10 by 11 will give me 1 remainder. So we have 1 power 30, which is 1. 3 cube, which is 27, divide by 11. So this 1 power 30 is 1. So 27 divided by 11 will give you a 5 remainder. So one can mark option number 1 as the answer. So definitely at type A, people who have done basic, let's say, remainder question will find this sum to be on the easier side. In this sum, it is given that Beena incurs a 19% loss when she sells the product at Rs 4860 to Shyam, who in turn sell this product to Hari. If Beena would have sold this product to Shyam at the purchase price of Hari, she would have obtained 17% profit. Then the profit in rupee made by Shyam is. Please note the task is to find out the absolute profit and not the profit percentage over here. So what we can do is, if I focus on this particular sentence, 4860 happened to be the selling price of, let's say, Beena, and one can say cost price of Shyam over here. So CP of Shyam is equals to SP of Beena in this particular context happens to be a 4860, and this basically incurs a loss of 19%. So now for Beena, if I know the selling price as 4860, loss percent is also known to us, we can simply find out the cost price of Beena. So the relation is selling price is equals to mark price into multiplying factor. So if I am incurring a loss of 19%, then one can say selling price must be equals to 81% of the cost price of Beena. So 4860 is equals to 81 over 100 into the cost price of Beena. So here this is going to be equals to a 60, and one can say cost price of Beena turns out to be equals to a 6,000. We got this number. Now they are saying, in case, let's say, Beena have sold this product to Shyam at the purchase price of Hari. So I don't know the current purchase price of Hari. In that case, the profit would have been 17%. So if you look at, suppose, a 17% profit on this number will be nothing but 17 over 100 into 6,000, and that will be equals to a 1020. This much is the profit. That means in case Beena sold it to Shyam at the purchase price of Hari, so this number 7020, this happens to be nothing but one can say actually cost price of Hari. And the question says, and the profit in rupee made by Shyam. So understand, Shyam purchased it for 4860. and is selling to Hari at, let's say, 7020. So the amount of profit made is nothing but, one can say, 7020 minus 4860, and this thing equals to a 2160. A slightly longer route, we were finding out the cost price of, let's say, Bina, and then cost price of Hari, and so on like this. Let's make it slightly on the simpler side. So what I could have done is, suppose if I've taken the cost price of Bina as 100. In the first case, one can say Bina is selling to Sham at a loss of 19%. So the cost price of Sham will simply become 81 because 19% loss. In case Bina sold it to Sham at the price which Hari paid, the profit would have been 17%. That means the cost price of, let's say, Hari should have been nothing but a 117, 17% on this number 100. So if you look at over here, what is given to us is that this 81 is actually given to us in absolute numbers 4860. And the question says, find out the profit in rupee made by Shyam. Understand, Shyam is, let's say, buying it for 81 and selling it to Hari. Hari is purchasing it for, let's say, 117. So the person Shyam makes a profit of, one can say, nothing but 36. So the question actually becomes, if 81 correspond to a 4860, how much is, let's say, the number 36? So 81 corresponds to 4860, then 36 will corresponds to what? We can simply do a cross multiplication. 36 into 4860 divide by 81. So 81 into 60 is this number. 60 into 36 become equals to a 2160, which is the answer for this particular question. In the next sum, again a straightforward sum if people apply jugaad and common sense. All the value of x satisfying the inequality 1 over x plus 3 less than equals to 1 over 2x minus 3 are how much? So in this particular case, you can see some options are minus 5 to 1.5, 1.5 to 2, less than minus 5, more than 3 by 2, less than minus 5, between 3 by 2 and 8, minus 5 to 3 by 2, and more than equals to 3 by 2, and so on like this. So what I could do in this particular case is, we can possibly put some simple value. For example, I would want to know whether x equals to 0 is going to be a part of the solution or not. So x equal to 0 will make the inequality like this: 1 over 3 is less than equals to 1 over negative 3. A positive quantity is less than equals to negative quantity, it's a false. This is not getting satisfied. What does that mean? X equal to 0 won't be part of the solution. Won't be part of the solution. And if I look at, suppose, option number 1, where 0 is part of solution, should be out. Again, x equal to 0 also happens to be part of option number 4. So option number 1 and 4 are simply out if I take simple number like x equals to 0. One could potentially put x equals to 1 as well, doesn't matter. This is clearly false. Now if I look at option number 2 and option number 3, x less than minus 5 happens to be true for both of them. In one case, option number 2, they are saying more than 3 by 2. In the next one, more than 3 by 2, but an upper limit of 8 over here. So now one can potentially put, let's say, some value of, let's say, x as 9 or 10. 9 or 10, one can say, are part of option number 2 but not part of option number 3. Let's put x as 10. If I put, suppose, x as 10, which can help me to eliminate option number 2 or 3. If I put x equals to 10, my left hand side will become 1 over 13 less than equals to 1 over, this will become 2 into 10 minus 3, giving you a 17. And is 1 by 3, one can say, less than equals to 1 over 17? Again false, which means x equals to 10 also won't be part of solution. If x equals to 10 won't be part of solution, option number 2 would be ruled out, and one can safely mark option number 3 as the answer for this particular question. In this sum, it is given that the company has 40 employees whose name are listed in a certain order. In the year 2022, the average bonus of the first 30 employee was rupee 40,000. Of the last 30 employee, it was 60,000, and the first 10 and the last 10 together was rupee 50,000. Next year, the average bonus of the first 10 employee increased by 100%, and the last 10 employee increased by 200%, and the remaining employee was unchanged. Then the average bonus in rupee of all the 40 employed together in the year 2023 was how much? So again, it's not a very straightforward question. Let's see what they're saying over here. So suppose if I, let's say, categorize them under, let's say, 4 bracket. So one can say this represent E1 to 10 represent, one can say, total, let's say, bonus, let's say, of the first 10 employees. E11 to 20 represent the bonus of all the, let's say, next 10 employees. And then let's say same way 21 to 30, and let's say 31 to 40. So I use this variable. I'm not writing this as 40 different variables over here. As per this sentence, it is given that average bonus of the first 30 employee was 40,000. Now one can take this absolute number also, or we can take this as 40k as well, because 1k represent a 40,000. So first 30 basically means one can say E of 1 to 10 plus E of, let's say, 11 to 20 plus E of, let's say, 21 to 30, and the average was 40,000. So total sum has to be nothing but equals to 40,000 into 30, giving you, one can say, a 12 lakhs, or one can say 40k into 30 will give me a 1200k. Then they are saying last 30 employee, the average bonus was 60,000. So 60k into 30 will give me a 1800k. And what is this? What do I mean by last 30? I can say E11 to 20, E21 to 30, and one can say E31 to 40. And this total must be equals to 18 lakhs, or one can say 1800k over here. And finally, they told you the first 10 and the last 10 will give me together 50,000, which means if I multiply by 20, I get nothing but 10 lakhs. So the total, the first 10 and the last 10 total must be equal to 10 lakhs, or one can say 1000k over here. Now, if I look at this 3 equation, one thing if you observe that this E1 to 10 is coming in 2 equation. Same way E of 11 to 20 also coming in 2 equations. E21 to 30 also coming in 2 equation. E of 31 to 40 coming in also 2 equation. So basically if I try to add, let's say, all the 3 equation, then I will get nothing but 2 times of E of 1 to 10. So 2 times of E of 1 to 10, E of 11 to 20, the next 30, and the last 10. This total must be equals to, one can say, nothing but 4000k over here. And if I divide by 2 now, this will become nothing but, one can say, a 2000k. And from this, I will get very important information. And what is that? So if I look at the first equation, I know the first 30 total is 1200k, and all 40 is nothing but total of 2000k, which means E of, let's say, 31 to 40 is equals to 800k, which is 8 lakhs. Then if I look at the second equation, I know the last 30 total is equals to 1800k, which means the first 10 must be equals to a 200k. And with the help of this, I can say in this particular case that this part, this total must be, one case, equals to a 1000k. Now what is happening next year? There is an increase, one can say, first 10 increase by 100%. So if I focus only on the increase, it's an increase of 200k for this. No change for the middle 20 employees, and the last 10 increased by 200%. An increase of, one can say, nothing but a 1600k. And the question says over here, then the average bonus in rupee of all the 40 employees in the next year was how much in rupees term? So how much is the increase? If you look at 1600k plus 200k, that means increase of 1800k from the number 2000k, which means the total bonus of all the 40 employee next year happens to be nothing but, one can say, 3800k. So This was the old bonus, and now we are adding the increment part, giving you nothing but 3800K, or one can say 38 lakhs. Divide by 40, that's my average. This will become 95K. But since they want the answer in terms of rupee, the required answer has to be 95,000. Hence, option number 1 is the required answer for this particular question. In the next time, it is given that root of x plus 6 root 2 minus root of x minus 6 root 2 is equals to a 2 root 2. Find the value of x. Now we can use two methods. One is the normal conventional method. The other basically would be using the concept of how to find out the square root of a third quantity. In the first one, suppose the question goes like this: root of x plus 6 root 2 minus root of x minus 6 root 2 is equals to a 2 root 2. Let's try to square both sides. So if I square the entire left hand side and the RHS side, what is going to happen? We can use the formula a minus b whole square equals to a square plus b square minus 2ab. So one will get root of x plus 6 root 2 whole square. I'm just showing you the steps, not required. Plus root of x minus 6 root 2 whole square minus 2 times of root of x plus 6 root 2 into x minus 6 root 2 will become equals to x square minus 6 root 2 square become nothing but 36 into 2, which is 72. And this thing would be equals to 2 root 2 square become equals to 8. This will become x plus 6 root 2 plus x minus 6 root 2 minus 2 times of root of x square minus 72 is equals to a 8 over here. And now this 6 root 2 term basically will get cancelled out. What I will get right now is that the term, this is 2x minus root of x square minus 72 is equals to 8. I can, let's say, cancel by 2 on both sides. Let's bring the third term on the right hand side and the term 4 on the left hand side, giving you x minus 4 is equals to root of x square minus 72. Let's square again. You will get x minus 4 whole square is equals to x square minus 72. X minus 4 whole square will be equals to x square minus 8x plus 16 is equals to x square minus 72. X square term basically will get cancelled out, and one will get 8x equals to 88, x equals to 11. Hence 11 is the answer for this particular question. The other way could be, if I possibly take the term, let's say, root of x plus 6 root 2 in the form of, let's say, root of a plus a root of b, then the term root of x minus 6 root 2 will be nothing but root of a, the conjugate, root of a minus root of b. So the difference in this particular case should be equals to a 2 root b, which must be, one can say, equals to a 2 root 2. So one can say actually b will become equals to a 2 over here. Also, if I look at, if I square this particular term, the term x plus 6 root 2 should be equals to root a plus root b whole square, and that will be equals to a plus b plus 2 times of root of ab. In this particular context, since I got the value of, let's say, b to be equals to a 2 here, so x plus this term is 2 into 3 into root 2, so root of 18 is equals to a plus 2 plus this term, one can say, is 2 times of 2a. And you can clearly see, if I compare now both sides, one can say potentially that 2a is equals to 18, a become equals to a 9. And if I now compare the rational part, so one can say x should be equals to a plus 2, and since x comes out to be, a comes out to be equals to a 9, this term a plus 2 will become 9 plus 2, giving you 11. Hence 11 is the answer for this particular question. In the next sum on TSD, which goes like this: a bus starts at 9 am and follows a fixed route every day. One day it travels at a constant speed of 60 kmph and reaches the destination 3.5 hours later than the scheduled arrival time. It simply means, since it was late, it means that the normal speed must be more than 60, is what I can say right now. Next day it travelled 2/3 of its route in 1/3 of its scheduled time, and the remaining part of the route at 40 kmph to reach just on time. if the scheduled arrival time of the bus is how much. So understand in this particular case, what I can do is, suppose if I assume the normal speed to be s, so I was supposed to go at the speed of s in a time frame of t being my normal time. So s into 2 represent nothing but total distance. Now what has happened, in case you go at a speed of 60 being the speed, in that case time taken happens to be 3.5 hours more than the normal. So it must be t plus 3.5. So s into t is equal to 60 into t plus 3.5, and that is equals to, one can say, total distance. Now what they are saying now is, next day it traveled 2/3 of its route in 1/3 of its total scheduled time. So we don't know speed right now at this particular point of time, and the remaining part. So if I focus on the remaining part, can I say over here that it must have covered 1/3 of the route and in 2/3 of the time? To reach just on time, because in that particular case time taken entirely was equals to, one can say, same as the normal time. So what I can say is that 1/3 of the route I can say would be equals to 1/3 of s into t, and the same thing should be equals to the speed of, one can say, 40, and the time taken basically was, one can say, 2/3 of the time. So from this particular part, we can clearly going to find out the value of s as well. So I can replace the term s into t as this also. So 1/3 of 60 into t plus 3.5 is equals to 40 into 2/3 of t. This 3 and 3 basically will get cancelled out. This I can 0, 0 can also be cancelled out. 2, this is going to be equals to a 3. So now I can say 3t plus 10.5 is equals to a 4t, or t become equals to a 10.5. So it starts at 9 o'clock, and if it takes 10.5 hours for the entire journey, the scheduled arrival time basically must be equals to 10.5 hour plus 9 a.m. plus 10.5 hours will give you nothing but 7:30 p.m. Hence option number 4 is the answer for this particular question. The next sum happens to be on PNC. P, Q, R and S are 4 towns. One can travel between P and Q along the 3 direct path, between Q and S along 4 direct path. So what do we have? We have a structure like this. Let's say we can call it like P, Q, R and S. So we have direct path between P and Q, which are 3 in numbers, between Q and S, which are 4 in numbers, between P and R, let's say if I do it like this, which are 4 in number, no direct path between P and S, so no path between P and S, and we have few direct path between Q and R. Suppose if I call it to be equals to X, and between R and S, which I will call it supposed to be equals to a Y. One can travel from P to S via Q or via R or via Q followed by R respectively in exactly 62 possible ways. One can also travel from Q to R either directly or via P or via S in exactly 27 possible way. The number of paths directly between Q and R is how much? So task is to find out the value of X over here. And we have two scenarios. We have to form an equation to arrive at the answer. So let's see, if I look at this particular part, travel from P to S. I can't go directly from P to S. So I can go from P to Q and Q to S. That I can achieve in 3 into 4 ways. We are using the concept of principle of counting the AND rule, P to Q and then Q to S. So we use this part. Via R, so I can go from P to R in 4 ways and then R to S in Y ways. So 4 into Y. Or I can go from P to Q in 3 ways, Q to R in another, let's say, X ways, and R to S in Y ways. So another 3 into X into Y. And this must be equals to a 62. Now this 3 into 4 happens to be a 12. So if I subtract 12 on both sides, I will get nothing but 4Y plus 3XY is equals to a 50. That is my one of the equation which I am getting right now. Next one can travel from Q to R. So I can go from Q to R directly in X ways or via P. So Q to R, so I go to Q to P and then P to R. So 3 into 4 again will give me a 12. Or I can go from Q to S and then S to R. So another 4 into Y will be equals to a 27. And now I get X plus 4Y is equals to, one can say, 15. So if you see right now at this particular point, we have two equations and we can solve for the value of X and Y. I will show you two methods after this particular steps. So one basically would be, if I can look at over here, I can take Y common. If I take Y common, I get Y into 4 plus 3X equals to a 50. And now at this particular point of time, I can possibly want to replace the value of y. So right now in this particular case, I can say 4y is equals to 15 minus x. Let's multiply by 4 on both sides. So this equation will become, one can say, 4y into 4 plus 3x is equals to a 200. And now I can replace the term 4y as 515 minus x. So 15 minus x into 4 plus 3x equals to a 200. If I multiply, what do we get? So solve for x, you will get 60 plus 45x minus 4x minus 3x square equals to a 200. If I simplify, I will get 3x square minus 41x plus 140 equals to a 0. Now, if I look at the multiplication of 3 and 140, it becomes a 420. I want to split the number 420 such that the sum will become equals to a 41. So 21 and 20. So 3x square minus 21x plus 20x plus 140 equals to a 0. This minus here. So I can take 3x common, x minus 7 minus 20 common, x minus 7 equals to 0. So we get x minus 7 as one factor and 3x minus 20 as the other factor. X become equals to 7 or 20 by 3. But understand what is x, the number of path which has to be a proper positive integer. So this 20 by 3 can be ruled out. So we can say x has to be equals to a 7 and 7 must be the answer for this particular question. If I think about what is going to be the possible values of y, so if you look at the second equation, I can potentially see the upper value of y I can think about as 3. So please note the value of y can be a 1 or a 2 or a potential 3. Also understand from this equation, y into 4 plus 3x, y is the positive integer and must be a factor of the number 50 over here. So one can potentially want to try out with the value of y as 1 or y as 2. If I suppose put y as equals to a 1, in that case one will get 4 plus 3x equals to 50 and we won't get a nice value of x in this particular case. So y equals to 1 can be ruled out. If I now try, let's say with y is equals to a 2, in that case you will get the term 4 plus 3x equals to a 25. 3x becomes 21, x become equals to a 7. And one can see now also, if I look at over here, for y equals to 2, this part will become 8, x has to be equals to a 7. So x7 and y2 is the only possible solution combining both this equation. Hence, x equal to 7 is the answer. So we can enter 7 as the answer for this particular question. So again, overall, this was also not a very straightforward question. It will take some task for people to write down this two equation and then think of solving using Jugaad or possible using quadratic. The next sum also is a straight lift from the previous year CAT 23 slot 1 paper. Same question exactly word by word, and again people who have solved this particular sum in the past will find this to be on the easier side. Again, this sum is straight away easy as well. Let's read this sum. It says that the person Anil invests 22,000 for 6 years in a scheme with 4% interest per annum compounded half yearly. That means we are going to have 12 such intervals. Separately, the person Sunil invests a certain amount, we don't know how much, in the same scheme for 5 years and then reinvest the entire amount he received at the end of the 5 year for 1 year at 10% simple interest. If the amount received by both of them at the end of the 6th year are equal, then the initial investment in rupee made by Sunil. So the main thing to equate in this particular case is amount at the end of 6th year for both Anil and Sunil basically happens to be equal. For Anil, it was a compounding. So the amount for Sunil is nothing but principal of 22,000. Now the rate is 4% annually. And if I am doing a compounding half yearly, my corresponding rate become nothing but one can say a 2%. So 1 plus R by 2% raised to n. If I say n is the number of year, we are going to have, let's say, 2 cycles for each year. It must be equals to a 2n over here. What about for Sunil? If I look at the person Sunil, I don't know the amount, let's say is X. He also has put in the same scheme for 5 years. So he will again going to earn an interest of R by 2 every 6 months. And for him, it is going to be 1 less year. So in this case, I could have told 2 into 6 directly. This is going to be 2 into 5. And whatever amount he is going to get at the end of 5 years, he reinvests at simple interest at the rate of 10%. So for him, he is going to get this amount plus 10%. So 1 plus a 10%. So 22,000 into, this is going to become 1 plus 2%. So 1.02 raised to 12 is equals to x into 1.02 raised to 10 times of 1.1 over here. Now if I cancel this 1.1 with this number, I get nothing but a 20,000. Understand this 1.02 raised to 12 can scare many of you, but understand finally we can cancel this 10 powers and this will be nothing but 2. 1.02 square, 102 square happens to be a 10404. This part will become 1.0404 is equals to a x. So x will become equals to, one can say, 20808. Hence option number 1 is the answer for this particular question. We have a nice sum on time and work, and many of you might have found this sum to be slightly on the challenging side. It says that the person Amal and Vimal together can complete a task in 150 days. So the person A and V takes 150 days, while the person Vimal and Sunil takes 100 days. So again, to start with this particular problem, we can be tempted to take total work as a potential 300, which happens to be the multiple of the number 150 and 100. So one can say efficiency, the per day rate of work or per day efficiency of A and V will become 2 per day. And for V and S, it will become 3 per day. Now what is given here? Amal start working on the task and work for 75 days. So what we can do is 75 days of Amal. Then Vimal takes over and works for 135 days. So 135 days of Vimal. And finally, one can say Sunil takes over and complete the remaining task in 45 days. So 45 days of Sunil. And what happens? Total work done should be equals to a 300. Now please understand one thing, that the Amal and Vimal efficiency together is known to me as 2 per day. Vimal and Sunil efficiency is together known to me as 3 per day. So what we can do is we can combine this. So I can do this 75A plus 75V. So I can say A plus V in one day does 2 per day. So in 75 days, they are going to do nothing but 150 units. Then again, I can, Sunil work also has been combined with Vimal. So I can do this 45V plus 45S. So right now, 75V plus 45V becomes a 120V. And Vimal has worked for 135 days. So I can think of it like this, 15V. And this total must be equals to a 300. Now understand the first part, 75A plus 75V is as good as saying 75 days of A and V working together. And they will do nothing but 75 into 2, which is 150 work. 45V plus 45S is nothing but one can say 45 days of V and S working together, and they will do 45 into 3 plus 15-day work of Vimal equals to 300. 75 into 2 is 150. 45 into 3 is 135. 150 plus 135 becomes a 285, which means one can say the 15-day work of Vimal must be equals to 15. So the efficiency of Vimal comes out to be equals to 1. If V comes out to be 1 and A and V does a 2 per day, that means A is also going to do 1 per day. And if V plus S does 3 per day, and out of that Vimal contribution is 1 per day, so S is doing nothing but 2 per day. If the sum was till this particular point and asked you possibly how much, let's say, time S alone will take or V alone will take, the sum was straightforward. But again, they have given another layer in this particular question saying if Amal has started the task alone and worked on all the days. Vimal worked on every second day, so worked on day 2, day 4, day 6, day 8, and so on. And the person Sunil had worked on every third day, so 3, 6, 9, 12, and so on. The number of days required to complete the task would have been how much? So what you will do in this particular context is the LCM of 2 and 3, because there will be some day when you will find A, V, S, all three working together. And that number is nothing but 6 days. 6, 12, 18 are the days when all three are going to work together. If you see some pattern here, and I will do a cycle of 6. So day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, 5, and 6. The person A is working on all the 6 days, or all the day others. The person Vimal works on every second day. So you will have V on day 2, day 4, and day 6. And the person Sunil you are going to find on day number 3 and day number 6. And after that, the same cycle basically will keep on repeating. How much work you think has been done by Amal? So Amal basically has worked for 6 days. So it's a 6-day work of Amal, which is 6. It's a 3-day work of Vimal, which is another 3, and a 2-day work of Sunil, which is going to be equals to another 4. So total work done, if you see, in a span of 6 days happens to be 13 units. And what we can say is that 13 into 20 is 260. Total work is 300. Another 40 is left. So basically, if you divide the number 300 by 13, we will get 23 point something, which means we need basically 23 cycle of 6 days. So understand, if I talk about 23 cycle of 6 days, we are saying nothing but 138 days. And the amount of work done in this 23 cycle is nothing but 23 into 13. So 23 into 13 giving you 299. This much work is done by the end of 138 days, which means if I look at the 139th day, only A will work and he can do 1, and the amount of work left also is 1, which means by the end of 139 day, the work done would be 300 and the entire work is over. So required answer for this particular question happens to be 139. Please note this sum was a theta, but many of you, because they prefer time and work, might have wasted a lot of time in this particular question, but not a very straightforward question. Being a theta, I would put this under a B or a potential C category question. In the next sum, it is given that if x and y satisfy the equation mod of x plus y equals to 15 and x plus mod y minus y equals to 20, then find the value of x minus y. Now in this particular case, what we can do is we can potentially take some cases, and the obvious first case I will take is going to be nothing but x as positive and let's say y as positive. So x positive, y positive. In that case, the term mod x can be replaced as x, mod y can also be replaced as y. This will become x plus y is equals to a 15, which basically will give you 2x plus y as 15. And the next one can say will be x plus y minus y as 20, and that will give you x is equals to 20. Please note, our assumption was that x is positive, y is also positive. I got x to be equals to 20, which is positive, perfectly fine. But if I put suppose x as 20 in the first equation, which is 2x plus y as 15, you will get 40 plus y is equals to 15. So y become equals to, one can say, a negative 25. And this means our assumption basically was incorrect and it doesn't satisfy y being positive number. So this case basically can be ruled out. So now we can take the case of x positive and y negative. If that is the case, then the term mod of x will be replaced by x and the term mod y will be replaced by minus y. So I am going to have now, this will be x plus y as 15, giving you 2x plus y as 15. And in the next term, x minus y equals to 20 will give you x minus 2y is equals to a 20. And now at this particular point of time, we can simply go for, let's say, solving for x and y, and we can see whether x positive and y negative condition satisfied or not. Suppose if I potentially double the first equation, that will give you 4x plus 2y equals to a 30. If you add them now, you will get 5x equals to 50, x equals to a 10, which is fine. I have taken the case of x being positive, perfectly fine. If x happens to be a 10, then I will get the term 2x will become 20 plus y is 15, y become negative 5, which is also perfectly fine because I have taken the case of y being negative. And we don't have any option like CBD, so we have multiple possibilities. So I won't go into the length of finding out x negative, y positive, and both being negative. So we found out x as 10, y as minus 5. The task was to find out the value of x minus y. So 10 minus of minus 5 will give you a 10 plus 5, which is 15. Hence option number 1 is the answer for this particular question.